Hello and welcome to my Astrocast. This is Heather Rowan Robbins speaking to you from Ronan, Montana. And every month I want to take a look at the astrology of the month ahead to give you some navigating skills. Then I get a chance to talk to some of my favorite astrologers about this moment and about what's really interesting to them. So the first 15 minutes we're going to talk about what's going on astrologically at the moment. And that is a lot. For one thing, the sun is still flaring, very active. You can always go to spaceweather.com to see what's happening. I gather there are aurora borealis if you lived where it didn't get cloudy at night. And it's quite beautiful. But whenever the sun turns up its volume, it infuses us with extra energy. We see trees grow faster, plants move faster, politics speeds up. And we can look back through history and see this very clearly. Mid-60s, American Revolution, the French Revolution were all under active suns. And so it just turns the volume up in all the other aspects. And there is a lot happening this week. Now, I think Frederik Woodruff is who I'm going to be working with, a wonderful astrologer from Washington, who I have a blast every time I talk with him. And we're going to be talking about that Mars Pluto opposition, which is so intense at the moment. And right now it is square the sun. Now that Mars Pluto opposition, this is the chart for today, for right now. Mars Pluto, takes about 2 years around the zodiac. So it's not that rare that it opposes Pluto, but usually once every 2 years-ish. Mars opposed Pluto exactly last fall on the election. And we see this tension building into the beginning of what that produced. That had worried me that we would be going back, not going forward, but Mars opposed Pluto set up that fight of wills at there. Then Mars moved forward and retrograded back to oppose it exactly, this time in Leo and Aquarius, because Pluto had just moved into Aquarius for good, or for the next, decade plus, right before that, right as the new year began. So this whole year was birthed under a Mars-Pluto opposition, echoing the tension we saw at the election. And now this week, as all these struggles are being so visible in the papers and in the international politics, we see Mars-Pluto form an exact opposition again. Then Mars slowly, not overnight, but slowly moves forward. Now this Mars-Pluto opposition, and Pluto is slowing down. Pluto will be turning retrograde on May 4th. So it is nearly stationary, and they both square the sun. So we are feeling it particularly this week, next couple of days. And we can think about that going back to your own story, besides the great politics of this time, which is not something anybody can ignore. We're all steeping in it. But that opposition may have had an echo in your own life. And it may be a confrontation with another willpower. It may be some other way of a problem that you've experienced out there in the world. It may be just frustration, or it could also be because that is an energizing opposition. And my strong belief is if we can find a good way to express an aspect, we can redirect the river. We can take that energy and put it in a good place. So setting ourselves up for a useful challenge, one that we can be relatively safe about. If you start throwing rocks around your house and building a wall, as my neighbor is doing right now, do it carefully because it's also a somewhat accident-prone aspect. We may have to confront some difficult part of reality, something that we don't necessarily want to see or want to deal with, but really need to take on and deal with direct. So that Mars-Pluto opposition may be something, we are facing something that came up in the fall. We worked again during around the new year, and now may see some resolution for it, but we certainly will see the next chapter of it, doing this work as we deal with how to align willpower and the transformation of the world, what we want and what we actually have to deal with, and how to move out of the pure machismo and into something more constructive. So that's going to be an ongoing issue this month. We also now have Neptune at 0 Aries. Uranus goes into Gemini later on this year. Right now it's running at around 25 Taurus, and Pluto is at 3 degrees of Aquarius. It's about to turn retrograde. It won't turn direct until October, but it only goes back to 1 Aquarius. It moves very little bit during its retrograde cycle. But every time the moon changes sign, the sun changes sign, any shift, we see those planets hit off those major outer planet aspects. So it's going to be an interesting month, as we just remember that whenever you see a planet change sign, it's got a lot to deal with just as it walks in the door. We have on this now, as I want to come back to this, right now the moon is in Pisces. It's going to be in Pisces. When the moon is in Pisces, you want to give yourself room to have your feelings for the next 2 days, but don't let it stop you, but let yourself have room to have those emotions. Then the moon, as the moon gets ready, it's going to go over Friday and Saturday into Aries, and watch there be, the revolution is up. When the moon is in Aries, we don't want to be told what to do anyway, but it hits Neptune and Mercury, and really watch for people's voices erupting on Saturday. And it's not just because it's Saturday. But then we head into the new moon of Taurus on Sunday in the afternoon. It's about 1:30 exactly here in Western Montana. And the moon Saturn conjunction will be the moon sun conjunction in Taurus starts one of the most fertile times of the year. This next 2 weeks is time to plant. It's time to plant ideas. It's time to plant seeds. While the moon is conjunct in Taurus, if you can start your seedlings, your garden will thank you for it. If you can, use that moon in Aries to turn the soil. Plant on Sunday after 1:30. Plant on Sunday and Monday practical things that you want to grow, relationships you want to nurture, political movements you want to send those letters. Then when the moon goes into Gemini, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week is time to plant ideas, plant thoughts, work with that concept of, send out proposals, get the word out any way you can. And that will start. Then the moon heads into Cancer again on next Thursday and Friday, and that Cancer moon is another great time to plant actual plants outside, and then work with that for the next 2 weeks. When the moon is in, and it's easy to find where the moon is. You can look at my calendar. You can look We Moon, any of the, or just type in where's the moon today on Google. And when the moon is in an earth or water sign, plant in your garden. When it is in a fire or air sign, plant in thought and action and words and ideas. Plant those and get those cooking. So that's going to be an interesting process. Now today, going back to this chart for today, we see that the sun is exactly square Pluto. So you might feel a bit of existential angst, and that's going to echo not just with the Mars Pluto sun exact square, but that existential questioning anytime one of the planets brushes on the edges of Pluto, asks us to think, would this matter in the face of life and death? Is this important? What do I want to make sure that I accomplish this lifetime? How do I put this in proportion to the world's issues? Where can I put my heart and my direction? And we'll see that continue echoing through the process. Now, it's interesting that both Venus and Mars, the two emotional arbiters, the ones that kind of decide how we're emotionally interacting or what is the mood of the moment, Venus is now conjunct Saturn, and Mars is opposite Pluto. So Venus and Mars are both dealing with pretty heavy hitters, and that will be for the next few weeks. During that time, Venus pulls away when she moves into Aries about a week from now, but you'll still be feeling that echo for a while. Now, with that, it may be if you are in a dysfunctional relationship, this may be a clear time to set a clear boundary and have an exit plan and see if you can make a final shift. And if it doesn't, it might be time to leave, because this is a very decisive time. But if you're in a healthy relationship and it's a little feeling frayed around the edges, or healthy friendships, this is not just love. It's important to nurture it rather than test it this week. Venus-Saturn conjunction can make us want to test love or let life create mess between us and build up into the energy. And if we dealing with that mess, life, the hard work, Saturn issues, responsibilities, our work can just get in the way and make it hard to express the fullness of our affection or our creative whimsy. It can say, do the work. There's no time to be creative. But this may be just the time that we need that extra creativity. As Venus pulls into Neptune, it moves us out of that sense of, I have to do it the right way, or I can't, stop and hug you. I've got work to do. Or, I can't pet the dog because I've got work to do. Take that and notice that we're moving into a time when whimsy, when imagination can be our gift and challenge. When Venus goes into Aries on Wednesday, it conjuncts Neptune. Will be conjunct Neptune for a couple of days. When she does that, we have to provide the sense of reality. We can imagine, we can want to escape together. It's a wonderful time to just spontaneously, because Aries loves spontaneity, to just go, quick, let's go have a picnic, or let's take a drive and spend a moment together that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Take that dog to the park. In that process, if you can, move that so that you are shifting into the gear that you want to take it. Watch, though, a tendency to start imagining, to read things in that aren't there, to read either your fear, because Mars is opposed Pluto, we can get very suspicious, and only look for information that supports your idea, or look or see something and assume it's going to be wonderful. Now, we just have to stay in the present moment to make the most of that. And you put our creativity, our imagination into our writing, to our artwork, to our music. Watch this pattern in politics also. It's, what form of magical thinking, which is pretending we are somewhere that we are not, are we affecting in our love life, in our personal financial life, or in the politics? How are we pretending we are not where we actually are? And letting that moment be sufficient and important to itself. Now, the sun goes into Gemini on March 20th. And it's, okay. Hold on, I have to send a message here to Frederik, because we are time zone. Come on now. Okay. And so here we are. We're going to be talking about this in this process so Venus sextiles Pluto on May 6th, again, bringing us back to our art and our heart and some wonderful things. Now, from May 8th to 9th to the 10th, Mercury is forming some uncomfortable minor aspects. It semi-sextiles Uranus, Saturn, then enters Taurus on May 10th, and semi-sextiles Neptune. Semi-sextile is an aspect that is exactly 30 degrees. It's one sign off. Now, that one sign off is a it's an uncomfortable aspect because the signs, each sign is, it stretches us from the last sign. So each sign is the next sign over, does not have modality in common, cardinal, fixed, immutable. It does not have element in common, fire, earth, air, or water. It does not have polarity in common, the water and earth signs to the fire and air signs. So it stretches us. It's not a tough aspect. It stretches us like meeting someone that we have nothing in common with. If we can work things out with them, we grow. Our mind grows, our understanding grows, it expands. It's beautiful. So that's a powerful part of the process. And we will kind of notice that on May 8th to May 10th, that things may just feel a little out of sync and may stretch you, and that to take the growth training, to allow yourself to move into that next phase and stretch yourself, which can be quite beautiful. Then Mercury squares Pluto on May 12th, and that can be a time when we have some tough things to deal with, or our mind goes to dark places. Give it something worth doing. Remember, whenever we touch those Pluto aspects, that Pluto is Lord of mining. It is the image of bringing up a lot of dirt from underground, digging up dirt in our psyche, in our finances, in our politics, in our world, in our garden, digging up dirt, but rinsing away the dirt and having the gold and jewels, finding the treasure that's in there, planting the seeds we need to plant. So it's not just the negative. It can help us really focus, get to the point, and put in something powerful. But it often asks us to let go of things that we didn't know we had to let go of. And if then we take from the Mercury then squares Mars on the 12th, then the Sun conjuncts Uranus on May 17th at 27 Taurus. And that's, it's kind of a moment when you want to take a break, when doing things the same way, even though Taurus likes to do things the same way, doing things the same way may not be solid. Now, solid Earth, that's a good question. What is an unsolid Earth? We're seeing there's a volcano going off in Costa Rica at the moment. There's one that's getting ready to think about popping in Alaska. The tectonic plates are shifting, and they give us a good model for how to handle these. When there's lots of little shifts, we don't have the tension building up for the big break. Where we resist the change, where we resist shifts, there the tension builds up and can be a big earthquake. There may be literal earthquakes during this time. Hopefully, most of them are fairly small scale rumbles that decrease the tension. Are there changes in your family that have to go along the same line? Decrease the tension, move them along so that it works for them. And we hope that we can use that pattern to help us find ourselves, help us shift into gears. Now, so Mercury then squares Mars on May 17th, also as the Sun conjuncts Uranus. So watch that date for times of anxiety. Notice your anxiety, because Uranus is all about change. It's the planet that spins backwards and sideways rather than direct. And when it spins, when Uranus talks to us, we're ready for some different Monty Pythons, and now for something completely different. It asks us to look and to shift and to get ready to change. But it can also bring up a lot of anxiety in the process. And it's kind of the energy we need to step on stage or start something new or break out our orbit so that we can try something new. But that's not always comfortable on the system, because the same day on the 17th, Mercury squares Mars, we may speak, and Mercury is in Aries at that time. No, I'm sorry, it has already gone into Taurus. And that's from Taurus to Leo. When Mercury squares Mars, we get belligerent. We can develop an attitude. We can have a great time having a wrestling match to argue with our um, just debate. I think it's good to keep it a debate. Notice that it may be a muscle that you want to exercise, and just ask yourself if it will further. And it may be the perfect time to deal with a relative or a neighbor whose politics are very different than yours, not to try to convince them of anything, because Mercury square Mars in fixed signs, you're not changing anybody's mind, but by pressure. But you need to take a stand or witness for what you need to say. To say, well, that's your idea. This is my experience. This is what I see. This is my question. I don't see you answering my question here. To really take that place. Remember, or ask leading questions, because fixed signs, and there's this Mars Pluto opposition is in fixed sign, that Mercury Mars square will be in fixed signs. Fixed signs act like cornstarch in water. If you pour it, it becomes a liquid. If you press it, it becomes a solid. If you push someone when they're major fixed sign energy going on, you get nowhere. But if you pour them, if you ask them questions or ask them and consider this and make it like you're walking together with them rather than confronting, then it moves into a good place. And so we have that happening. And on the 20th, the Sun sextiles Saturn, which is a stabilizing aspect, on May 20th. Then it enters Gemini a few hours later. Now, as it enters Gemini, as it's because in the minute a planet changes signs right now, it's going to set off the outer planets. First, it will form a sextile to Neptune, which is a comfortable aspect. It's 1/6 of the way around the zodiac, asking us to use our imagination. Then it has, after it enters Gemini and it sextiles Neptune, on the 22nd, Venus trines Mars from Aries to Leo. Now, Venus goes into Aries on, when does it go into Aries? Next Wednesday. As it goes into Aries, it starts to talk to that Mars and Leo. This is going to be a spring of interesting changes in artistic approach. I think Neptune going into Aries, you're going to see a real shift in pop culture, in art, in music, that just will feel like a new generation gap, because Neptune has a lot to do with how we see movies, how we see our spiritual life, how we see the beauty, how we create illusion in our life. And that going into Aries this fall has really kicked in high gear. Now, and I appreciate that. I think it's been really powerful to feel that shift. Neptune has moved out of Pisces, where where truth was odd, and that's now something we're going to have to deal with through this next couple of years. AI is a product of Neptune in Pisces. That's not to say it's all negative, but what the danger of it is that it supports our mindset, that you get the information you ask for, that you program in. You might not be exposed to information that is a startling revelation to you. And there is no fact check in AI. That is, it gives you what it's been programmed to give you, rather than checking to make sure that what it gives you is correct. So we always need to do that with ourselves, with each other, with any news. That's becoming more conscious now with Neptune and Aries than it was before. So work with that. So we're seeing this change in aesthetics, change in music, change in pop culture, and it may be finally time for my generation to sit back and not necessarily try to headline the concerts and do their own music, but realize it's shifted here. that boat has shifted. But coming back to, we see this creative juice with Venus going into Aries, talking to Neptune, and that I want to see the artists becoming more of the leaders of the rebellion over the next bit. And I think the leaders of the rebellion are starting to really get juicy and make things happen. And we will see that new energy come up. So, but we also will feel new relationships start. Every spring we talk about spring fever when the planets go into Aries and Taurus, and we just kind of people start feeling their oats and feeling their body and seeing one another and just kind of want to know the whole world. And that can be a little hard on familiar relationships. So see if you want to support a familiar relationship with that Venus and Mars trine in fire signs, to have adventures together, go places you've never been, find ways of seeing each other with fresh eyes rather than same old, because we want that spark of aliveness. Make sure that your art supplies are there with you at all times, and enjoy taking it and coming alive with that. Now, so with that Venus, notice if you are looking for a new relationship, this is time to get out there and be involved in what matters to you. What are you passionate about? And see who else is sparking about the same things. Because the interconnective energy, new relationship could start very quickly, and the juice is up, and we want someone whose passion's going along the same line as ours. So that will be pretty strong all towards the end of May. On May 24th, the Sun trines Pluto as Mercury conjuncts Uranus in Taurus. That's when Saturn enters Aries. Now that's going to be the next big piece. Saturn's going to retrograde back. Both Saturn and Neptune were running together in Pisces, not quite conjunct, but running together in Pisces. Neptune has gone into Aries. Saturn is going into Aries. They almost conjunct, and they both turn retrograde in the fall. They back into Pisces, and we go back over some of those questions about what is truth, what's my vision, what's my purpose, what's my action, what do I do with this? And go through that in the fall. In that process, in the fall, we kind of come back to the work that we've been doing. It reminds us, anytime the planet's retrograde, it's not necessarily bad. When they're holding still, it can be difficult on them. But those retrograde cycles are to remember what we've learned, to review where we've been, and to bring that knowledge forward so we don't have to learn it again. So when you see a planet retrograde, think about, so right now, how the power dynamics, Pluto is about to turn retrograde, and it will be retrograde until October. It will stay in Aquarius this time, but it reminds us, what are we learning? Now, Pluto in Aquarius is asking us to learn that the power is in the people, the power is in the groups, the power is in organizations, and we can let the difficult political people have all the organization, which they are not having much of, or we can organize with each other about causes that matter to us, because that's where the power is going to be for the next 14 years. How can the individual relate to the power of the group? We see this right now in the question that's so strong about the rule of law. The idea that, with Pluto working the way it is, with Pluto in Aquarius, if we don't empower every single person in this country, whatever their circumstances are, with the right to the rule of law. In other words, you cannot throw someone out without a trial, because you don't know, as we have seen, whether they belong here or not until they've had their trial. You cannot count on the systems to be fair. They have to go through the process. And that process, that Aquarian, Pluto in Aquarius, Such a powerful piece. Our American Constitution was written the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. It's coming back to its Pluto return in a few years. This is how to, and I think that it will be even stronger after that return. But we are really looking at how do we apply it to Aquarius, to everybody in the group. And that's going to be an important part of this process. So it's going to be an interesting month. I'm going to ask you to stay, check my star codes for the daily and the weekly. And contact me if you want to see how these planets aspect you directly, rowanrobbins.com. And use this kind of juicy, exciting energy to see what new things you can grow in your life. Remember when the power dynamics feel stuck, when it's a fight in the family over the chores. Take it out of the dynamics of two willpowers running into each other and open it up into the heart. And we're going to see if we can work with it that way and see if moving into your own heart. It looks like I've got a technical problem with bringing on my guest right now. I'm going to close this, and I will start another one when I will record it with Frederik as soon as we can both get online, and then I will post that also later. But I was happy actually to have a chance. There's so much happening this month, to go into detail with you. Have a good month. Take care of yourselves, and see you next month.